Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jen?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, we're going to have a fun conversation today, aren't we?
Yes, we are. A very fun and important conversation.
Yes. And a conversation that doesn't need to be avoided because I can tell you, with my experience, my mother passed away suddenly when I was 35,
Mhm.
and I had no idea where anything was. So it is important to me to let our people know that even though this is a difficult conversation to have with even your spouse, like
Mhm.
I handle all the finances in our house, and if I were to be put in the hospital for a couple of weeks, he would have no idea how to keep this house going.
Mhm.
And if when you lose someone, let's say a parent or something like that, you've already got a lot of emotional stuff going on. To compound that with, I've got to find the will, I've got to find the mortgage bill, I need to, all these things that need to happen. It's
Mhm.
just so much nicer to have a central location where we can get our hands on these things. So, what do you think?
I agree, definitely. And understanding where your, spouse's information is, where your parents' information is really important. Just like you said, to make sure that things are put together, and if something happens to them, you have easy access to those things and then can work on, you know figuring out the next steps and where to go from there. So a lot of what we'll be talking about today is how to how to initiate those conversations, how to start finding out, especially from your family, where those important documents are, what their financial situation is, who are their who are the professionals that they work with, who is their estate lawyer, their financial advisor, their, tax accountant. All of those are going to be important because then you'll have someone you can go to if something happens that will have documents and know kind of what the situation is.
So I think we're both in agreement that the way to start this conversation is to develop an emergency binder or a what if binder or in case of emergency binder for yourself
Mhm.
to kick off the conversation, especially since a lot of us are going to be together coming up during the holidays. Family
Yes.
that we don't typically see all together. We're all going to be together.
Mhm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It would be very, very beneficial and a great way to kickstart that conversation if you have your own kind
Mhm.
of binder put together, have a list of things that, needs to be known about, understood in there, and then you can present that binder to your siblings, to your parents, show them what you did, and
Mhm.
then maybe start the conversation with, is this something you'd be interested in putting together for yourself? And that's a great way to come at them to learn more about their financial situation and to make sure that they are prepared without coming in kind of hard, if you will,
Mhm.
and making your parents believe like you're you're just trying to like nitpick into their finances.
Right. Get into their personal information. It's
Right.
more, if something were to happen, say, and I wouldn't go down the dying part, it would be more of like a medical emergency, keep
Right.
it light. If a medical emergency comes up and you're unable to take care of your home for a couple of weeks, months,
Mhm.
whatever, we need to be able to step in and keep the house running, because
Yep.
I would say typically, well, I mean, like in my situation, I handle everything. And if
Mhm.
if I were to end up in the hospital, my husband would be like, how do I even get to our banks? Right? Where is
Yeah.
all the banks? How,
Yeah.
well, I think it's very important even if you don't have these conversations with your loved ones just yet, to get started on this type of binder,
Yes.
because this time of year is when we are paying not only our monthly bills, but quarterly stuff comes up, annual stuff comes up. So this is a really good time to start pulling this together. Doesn't have to all be done tomorrow. You can
Right.
a little bit at a time.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of thinking about what should go into this binder, I think you kind of touched on it already. One of the first things that would be very helpful is having a list of where all of your accounts are located.
Mm-hmm.
So bank accounts, savings accounts, loans, credit cards, investment accounts, having a list of what type of account and where is a great
Mm-hmm.
first step in that binder to ensure that people understand where everything is. So, like you said, if something happens, they'll have an idea.
Yeah. And while you're
So,
taking
something
care of
else
these
that,
things,
no, sorry,
go
there
ahead.
must be a delay. Um,
There's a
but
little delay. Yeah.
something else, yeah. Something else that can be useful too is depending on where you're keeping this binder, maybe having passwords and ways to get into the account somewhere as well. Obviously, ensuring that it's in a safe, secure location, so it's not just sitting out for anyone to see. But it is one thing to know where everything is; it's another thing to be able to access stuff if need be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you could start out as easily with a Word document open or an Excel spreadsheet or just a piece of paper and copy and paste things in. I mean, just to get the process going. And yeah, I mean, it just, and plus it's going to help you too. I know there's certain passwords I can't remember. And then it's like, oh, I got to go look this up. And just to have it all
Mm-hmm.
in one spot, in I mean, it's just good business. I mean, how many, when we
Yes.
work in corporate America, we have desk documentation in case something happens to us, somebody can step in and still do your job. So, if you
Mm-hmm.
think of your family as a business, I mean, it just makes sense. So,
Yes.
anything else to add on why we need an emergency binder? I think we've pretty much covered that.
I think some other things to think about when putting an emergency binder together, and this is something that I experienced personally, was also making sure there's a place in your personal binder, again, to list any professionals you work with. That's important, so that there are contacts that family members can get a hold of, but also to list what bills you currently pay
Yeah.
and where those bills are located.
Hmm.
When my grandfather passed and we were in the process of moving my grandmother into her own house and all of that, um, she eventually got diagnosed with dementia. And we
Oh.
knew that we would have to start taking control of her finances and her bills and all of that to make sure that everything was getting paid and getting covered. And I was in her house for 2 or 3 days
Mm.
going through all of her filing cabinets and going through all sorts of documents to find out exactly what bills she
Mhm.
was paying, and
Mhm.
then making sure I had access to her checking account so that I could set up automatic bill pay, make sure everything was getting paid, make sure her accounts had money in them, things of that nature.
Mhm.
That happens all too often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, if she had had an emergency binder together already, listing out the bills, listing out where all of her accounts were, things of that nature, that could have avoided 3 days someone might have to take off work or travel to be in their office just looking through documents and trying to organize everything. So something for people to think about that I think can be helpful.
Yeah, so I have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone dies, you send a death certificate, and that then, and you prove that you're the executor or the person
Mm-hmm.
appointed to take over the estate. If someone's still living, what documentation do you need to send to the companies to say, I'm responsible now? So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so that document is a power of attorney document.
Mhm.
Obviously, and that's part of an estate plan. It obviously needs to be created when the parent or person is of the right mind. So you certainly can't wait until after they get diagnosed with dementia to
Right.
then have them, set up a power of attorney. But luckily, the first thing we did after my grandfather passed was I went with my grandmother to her estate lawyer and we updated all of her estate plans. So her will needed to be updated. We
Yes.
wanted to update her medical and financial powers of attorney, a living will, which gives everybody a designation of how you want your care to be if you become incapacitated. So all of those things were important to make sure they were up to date and had the right people listed on them. So at that moment, I was listed as her power of attorney. So
Okay.
then when I went to go set up her automatic bill pays, or I had to get access, submit
Mhm.
my email to some of the bills so they'd come to me and not necessarily to her email because she doesn't really check email anymore. I
Right.
had to send them that power of attorney document saying, hey, I've been designated. My grandmother has dementia. I'm the person that's taking on her bills and her finances. Please refer any issues or questions to me. And usually that's all you need.
I got you. I got you. Okay, well, I pulled together a quick list of, kind of the stuff that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, See if I missed anything.
Okay.
But one of the things that we need is personal information for all immediate family members and your pets. Don't
Mm-hmm.
forget those pets.
Nope.
So, I mean, if something were to happen, who is that person in the family that can kind of branch out and reach out to everybody else? That is
Mm-hmm.
really important because I know when my mom passed, I didn't want to have to be on the phone the whole time because,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not what you want. And I knew who my designated family member was. So, this is a very good conversation to have with siblings or
Mm-hmm.
aunts and uncle, however your dynamic is, who are the central people in the family, and being able to get everybody's contact information together is imperative because that's kind of the first step. You got to let
Mm-hmm.
everybody know, and you
Totally.
got to take care of the pets. I mean, come on,
Mm-hmm.
they're part of the family too,
Gotta
right?
have a plan for the pets. Yeah.
Okay, and then the next thing I came up because I was trying to logically think through what I did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have access to all your medical information. Who are
Mm-hmm.
your doctors? What do they care for? Things like that.
Right. Yeah. What is their contact information? Where are they located? All of that good stuff. Yep.
Yeah. What is your health insurance? Where's your
Mhm.
health insurance card?
Yeah.
What prescriptions are you taking? That is
That's
key.
important. Yep.
Yeah. Um, in any family medical history, usually the
Mm.
women are the ones that know that.
Yeah.
So while you've got aunts, uncles, I mean, not uncles, aunts, and all that together, it's good to say, what did great grandma, die from, or,
Right.
just some of that history. Then insurance information,
Hmm.
vehicles, home, boats, all that kind of insurance, the stuff that protects your assets. Who your
Don't
agent is.
forget life insurance either. Life insurance is a big one. Yep.
Yes. Because if you don't know about it, then you're relying on the agent, if it's at the same spot,
Right.
to say, hey, they've got life insurance.
Yeah. Usually having like a copy of your life insurance documents or putting down who the beneficiaries of your life insurance is, how much death benefit is there, that sort of thing. Is it term? Is it permanent? Like all of that will be important too for a family to know, because that is something that pays out very quickly if someone were to pass, and the beneficiaries need to be prepared for that, because then that money can be used to cover debts or final, expenses, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, very important to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's going to get difficult, because if one person's a beneficiary over another and all of that. So this is where we have to tread very lightly,
Yes.
and kind of, you know, don't have these conversations over the holidays. We're just
Right.
saying it's time to let's start planting the seeds. Okay, we've
Mm-hmm.
already mentioned household expenses, everything and anything you can think of that keeps your home running, and some
Mm-hmm.
things that people don't think of. Like I live out in the country, so we have septic tanks.
Mm.
Where are they?
Right.
Tell Let people know. Right side of the house, left side. If you're looking at at least give us an idea. Propane tanks, where are
Mm-hmm.
they?
Right.
If you have a well, where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that, if you're in the hospital and your well goes out or your septic needs to be pumped,
Mm-hmm.
kind of let people know where that is.
Yep.
If
That's
anything
smart.
else you can think of when it comes to the home?
Also, it's probably important to also know where any shutoffs are.
Yeah.
So gas shut off, water shut off, where the breaker box is. Sometimes it's not very intuitive. Any security information too. If there's a security system, like making sure what that code is or whatever else, and yeah.
Sprinkler systems. How do you
Mm-hmm.
turn that thing off if you need to turn
Right.
it? Yeah. Okay. Usernames, passwords, and websites. I mean, I
Yes.
think it should be with the pertinent information, but also just having
Mm-hmm.
a list of all of those things kind of as a backup is a good plan.
Yes, definitely.
Let's see, what else did I come up with? Financial account information. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
more your realm, but we kind of touched on that.
Yep.
And then where are the final documents?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the will? Where's the power of attorney?
Yep.
Where are medical directives?
Mm-hmm.
All of those things that you prepare in an estate. Other things that I listed out is like pet vaccination records, any military service records, vehicle titles,
Mm.
cemetery deeds, property
Mm.
deeds, stock certificates, diplomas. I'm not really sure why you would need that, but I threw it in.
Mm-hmm.
College transcripts, where the valuables are, the
Mm-hmm.
really valuable. Where's the receipt for those valuables? Anything else coming to mind?
Um, we mentioned list of professionals that they work with. We mentioned, um, yeah, that sounds about everything. Something else that we do want to touch on is where this should be placed. So one of the important things, and something that I know we set my grandmother up with, was getting her a fire safe to put all of these important documents in. So making sure that any home documents, car documents, estate planning documents, and then this emergency binder is
Mhm.
stored in a safe place that is resistant from fire, flood, all of the natural disasters, and that
Mhm.
the family, whoever in the family needs to have the code for the safe, has that code so they can access those documents whenever the case arises.
Yeah, most definitely. Because I know that when my husband's dad passed, there was a safe. that we had the combination to. It was a little bit bigger safe, but there was a
Mhm.
little safe inside it, and nobody knew the combination. So we had to
Mm,
hire somebody to come, get into it. So
yeah.
it's just good to have this information readily available, not
Yes.
to be noticed nosy, but because you you've got to keep things going. Once someone gets hospitalized, gets diagnosed with dementia, all of those things.
Yes. Exactly.
So there is a website out there that the government has provided for us that I ran across, and it is, let me make sure I tell everybody right. It is ready, the word ready, ready.gov. There are tons of free resources out there. And it even goes into, what do you need to have in case of a flood? What do you need to
Mhm.
have, natural type disasters and things of that sort. Great location. There's checklists. There's all kinds of stuff just to help you get organized and all of
Mhm.
that. So the message I would want to give is start with something
Mhm.
right now to protect your immediate family, like your partner or your children, in case something, if you're the sole finance person,
Mhm.
so you can keep everything going. That's one less thing you have to worry about. And then present this to the extended family to get that conversation started.
Yeah, and that is something we wanted to touch on as well. So, this can be an easy way, like you said, to get the conversation started with the family. It doesn't have to create the conversation around the holidays, like we said, but it could be something to bring to Thanksgiving dinner, or if you go travel to see your family during Christmas. You can bring that with you, or a sample one with you, and show your siblings, show your parents, like, this is something our family put together. We thought it was really important that we all knew all of the information in this if something were to happen to us, and we wanted to show you what this looked like, so if you were interested in creating something similar yourself, we could sit down and help you put something together. And this is a very, yeah, exactly. And so this is a very like direct way of showing them that it's important to have an understanding of all their finances, and that their family understands their finances.
Yeah, yeah. So that's our recommendation on how to have this very difficult conversation, but such a necessary conversation.
Yes, and making sure to include the whole family, siblings included. I know I talk to a lot of clients where I ask them if they're aware or if they're prepared for assisting aging parents, either if they outlive their retirement funds, if something happens to them medically. And I'll hear people say, well, my sister is the one that is kind of the designated like parent liaison. So sometimes siblings decide like the oldest sibling is the one that will be responsible for this or whatever else. But making sure you have those conversations and there's not just assumptions in the family of who's going to do what when. And then also deciding if something like that happens, does everyone have a role to play? Is there a sibling that's going to be the one that the parents move in with, or the mom moves in with if she can't afford to live on her own? Is there a sibling who's going to be like the executor or the power of attorney? Having those conversations and making sure everyone's on the same page is also incredibly important. And again, not necessarily having these during the holidays,
Yeah.
but bringing up the idea of scheduling a meeting after the holidays and
Yeah.
actually having time to sit down. I mean, we have Zoom and FaceTime and all this other stuff now, so it makes it a lot easier for
Sure.
families to have face-to-face conversations no matter where they're located, and get on the same page, and then be able to kind of like, handle the conversations from there.
Yeah. And the other thing I would want to point out is make sure you have a backup for the backup. So
Right.
if there is a sibling that usually takes charge, if something happened to that sibling, does the other siblings know?
Yeah.
Just everybody needs to be very open. It's not, this is about keeping things going, making
Yes.
it as easy as possible when something happens. That's all this is about.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you. We always have such great conversations.
I agree. Always. And it, it's so timely too, as I mentioned, like last week we talked about how to prepare for the holidays and how to save money and still be able to gift, friends and loved ones. And now we're also talking about the holidays, something a little bit different, a little bit more serious, but just as important to think about when you are around family and how to bring up those sensitive conversations. Because as we've mentioned before, some families didn't never talked about money when you were growing up. Some families, it was taboo. They didn't want to talk about it. So they could very well still feel that way about having money conversations. And it's important to try to approach it as gently as possible to make sure they understand the importance of letting, their family know of where everything is, what they have, how their situation is, or at least involving their professionals in it too. I mean, I've heard of people who said our parents wouldn't talk to us about it, but they gave their financial planner the permission to tell us their financial situation. So sometimes they used a third party in the middle to
Right.
kind of show them this is what their retirement will look like. This is, how much they have in assets. As long as they gave permission to that advisor to share that information, then they didn't have to have the conversation. They had their advisor do the conversation, which is fine. I mean, whatever works to understand the situation is important.
Yeah, that's good to know because in my situation, my mom's will was in her kitchen pantry, which
Mm,
was the exact last place I would have looked.
right.
But it's just the key is open communication, no matter what that looks like, with the
Hmm.
third party, with a sibling going through a sibling, or I mean, we all know how our family dynamics work. So
Yes.
it's just important to let's start the conversation. Let's plant
Yeah.
the seed. Let's not when you're already in a difficult position, have to start thinking logically and all of that. So, yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, we'll be back next week and
Yeah.
we'll have another surprise for everyone, I'm sure.
We'll also talk about another amazing, important financial topic that I think people will really resonate with. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, until we see each other then, right?
all right. It was fun, Jen. Great
It
talking to
always
you.
is. Yes, it always is. So, see you next week.
Bye.